The Pope meets survivors of abuse and offers an apology from the Catholic Church during his trip to Ireland. Pope Francis has called sexual abuse of children by the Catholic Church repugnant on his first day of his visit to Ireland. The Pope's held a private meeting with 8 Irish survivors of clerical abuse. Some of them had been forced to adoption as children after being born to single mothers. They say the Pope has apologized on behalf
and corruption in Rome itself. He literally referred to it as caca, and his translator again was kind of shocked and asked the Pope to clarify, and the Pope literally did some hand gestures and said, caca, they are filth in a toilet.
Pope Francis' visit to Ireland is the first by a pontiff in almost 4 decades. He's trying to reinvigorate the religion in the country. Until the 1990s, it was a bastion of Catholicism, but decades of scandals have hugely damaged the perception of the Church. Niamh Barker reports from Dublin.
The Pope's visit to Ireland at this moment of crisis in the Catholic Church was always going to set the global agenda on how the Vatican tackles its legacy of child sex abuse, and Pope Francis didn't waste any time.
I cannot fail to acknowledge the grave scandal caused in Ireland by the abuse of young people by members of the Church charged with the responsibility for their protection and education. The failure of ecclesiastical authorities to adequately address these repugnant crimes has rightly given rise to outrage. I myself share these sentiments.
Ireland's Prime Minister has been at the helm of social reforms in the country, including the recent popular vote to legalise abortion, long prohibited by the Catholic Church. He said it was time to build a new relationship between church and state.
People kept in dark corners, behind closed doors. Cries for help that went unheard. And these wounds are still open, and there is much to be done to bring about justice and truth and healing for the victims and survivors. Holy Father, we ask that you use your office and influence to ensure that this is done here in Ireland and also around the world.
In this saga of widespread abuse of children by members of the Catholic Church, protests were inevitable. These people looking for action, not words, from the Vatican.
I do get the feeling, though, that trust will not be returned within the Catholic population from simply what Pope Francis will say to the Catholic population. He needs to make clear that actions are going to be put in place and what those actions are going to be.
Alone in silent prayer, the leader of 1.2 billion Catholics. Later in the day, away from the cameras, he met 8 Irish survivors of religious and institutional abuse for 90 minutes. Likely the most emotional moment of his 36-hour visit for all involved. Pope Francis has gone further than any pope in acknowledging the Church's wrongs. But as new allegations of abuse continue to surface, the biggest challenge to the Church in Ireland is the Church itself. Pope Francis is in Ireland at arguably one of the darkest moments in the Church's modern history. But can Pope Francis, universally respected as a true reformer, reinvigorate faith in what the Catholic Church stands for? Thousands of the faithful packed Croke Park Stadium to hear Pope Francis speak. His visit is a moment of joy for many believers in Ireland, a country where more than 70% of the population identify as Catholic. But as the country embraces secular values, Irish society, regardless of faith, wants to hold the Church to account for past wrongs.